I popped on the Dark Ages expecting a slower, more patient Doom game because every interview talking about it was saying that you're going to be a tank and it's going to be slower than Doom Eternal's combat. Anybody screaming on the internet about how they're angry about Doom the Dark Ages being slower than Eternal, like, yeah, duh. That wasn't like a mistake on their part. That was very intentional. But the one thing I wasn't expecting when going into the Dark Ages was that it almost acts as a precursor to a Quake game that we never got. It catches a feeling that it's on the cusp of being an actual reboot to the Lovecraftian Quake from 1996 that we haven't seen in nearly 30 years. Quake 1 never got a conventional sequel. If you've ever played it, the hallways are filled with monsters and these Lovecraft castles. There's also these knights that run around trying to attack you. But then if you ever played Quake 2, 3, or 4, they don't look anything like that. The castle hallways have been left behind as an ancient relic of the past and been replaced with science fiction military establishments. The Strogg, the enemy of the game, now look like half robot, half man alien things that look nothing like the castle knights and the monsters of the original game. And then the weapons even feel like they're closer to Doom than they are the original Quake. Quake 1 never got that proper conventional sequel that matched its setting, its tone, and id Software just hasn't done anything like it since 1996. Until now. The environments are definitely the easiest way to see a similarity between the first Quake and the newest Doom game. I mean, look at Eternal. Now look at Dark Ages. Dark Ages goes from the depths of hells to the top of castle walls, and then goes even beyond that into the cosmic realm where there's this Cthulhu version of hell. And if there's any art out there that Quake 1 is more inspired off of, it is the big Cthulhu monster himself, the Lovecraftian horror. Dark Ages still has some of those Doom science fiction set pieces, but let's say you took all of that away, you stripped that away, it is just the tone and the feel of the hallways that you would stalk back in 1996. The dirty medieval corridors that bring back that cathartic feeling when you spray the blood of monsters on them. id Software has been messing around with science fiction for so long that going to the past and seeing these cosmic nightmares, seeing these castle hallways in 2025, and even enemy types that look like this. I'm sorry, id, I know you want me thinking of Doom, but all this has me thinking of is Quake. I don't always think that the look of Quake 1 matches with the fast-paced gameplay feel of Quake, but I think that Dark Ages proves something. It proves that id Software is in a place where they can excel at redoing the look of Quake for modern audiences. They could reel in a whole new audience of Quake players and give Quake 1 a proper conventional reboot or sequel that it never got way back in the day. Not that any of the Quake sequels are bad, they're just not proper conventional sequels in terms of tone. The main character in Quake, called the Ranger, has always felt a little bit smaller than Doom Guy. The enemies like the Shambler are always bigger than you. They're way taller than you, and it's not just the boss battles. There are standard enemies that feel huge in Quake. Doom the Dark Ages keeps up that feeling too. The first thing you're going to notice when you play the Dark Ages is how big a Mancubus is. The spider creatures, the cosmic baron of hells, or even fighting an imp. Imps are even just as big as you are. They're huge because now you can't jump like a freaking spider monkey around the map anymore. Your feet are glued to the ground, and this gives you a feeling of being a little bit smaller than the past few Doom games, definitely smaller than Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, and it makes the scale of Dark Ages feel more similar to the towering enemies and castle environments of Quake 1. Doom and Quake definitely share DNA, but specifically they share that DNA in one area across the decades: guns. We got the Cycler over here, which acts almost identical to the dual nail gun from Quake 1. It's legit a plasma rifle version of the dual nail gun from Quake. And I hate to even make this go even further, but we even got an actual nail gun in Dark Ages before we got a reboot to Quake. We have a grenade launcher now, just like we did in Quake 1. Not every gun in Doom the Dark Ages is just a knockoff of something from Quake, though, and I could see someone even saying in the comments, well, Appreciator, other games have grenade launchers, you know that, right?
Anybody home? Hey, think with fly.
And yes, I absolutely agree. But from the Cycler, to the melee-focused weapons, to the actual nail guns that are in the game, the massive enemies that tower over you, the cosmic horror Lovecraftian environments, the castles you explore, everything that's been mentioned makes that grenade launcher feel a little less coincidental and more inspired off of id Software's revolutionary 1996 game. Using all these environments, using this setting, it feels like you're self-reporting that you want to make a Quake game. Here are some pictures. These pictures are from when id Software announced a while ago that they planned on reimagining the original Quake. Would you have known that if I didn't say anything? Over and over, you can see the similarities between the look of Dark Ages and the look of Quake. If someone told me these were all just concept arts for Dark Ages, I wouldn't even question it. And that's because the art styles are one of the same. People were so convinced by this, convinced by the art style, the environments that were in the Dark Ages, that there was going to be some form of a connection to Quake, like a bridge between the two franchises. That was how desperately people wanted a Quake reboot. And that was how much people were thinking about it. They thought, like, oh, they're using all these environments again, like they have to have something there. id Software has never publicly said that they're working on a new Quake game, but the closest they could ever get to that was them bringing the Lovecraft monsters and even the entire cosmic realm where every environment, every creature, everything looks like how a Quake 1 remake would look. I still remember when Doom 2016 came out and they tried bringing back the arena shooter genre. It called back to so much of what made the Quake multiplayer good, but it just wasn't given enough time to resonate with fans, and it wasn't developed enough to catch a big audience. If everything I said does not convince you, do you think if the demons were switched out for the Strogg that you'd be convinced this was just a reboot to the Quake series? If it looks like a Quake, if it feels like a Quake, it's probably a Quake. I'm convinced that the id Software employees wanted to make a Quake reboot, but they got booted out by the higher-ups because they were worried about it not selling well, and they got kicked into doing another Doom game, so they compromised by doing the medieval aesthetics and the cosmic realm stuff within Doom. That was the compromise between the higher-ups and the developers, in my opinion. Not everything in the Dark Ages is just trying to be Quake 1 either. I want to give a second to be able to talk about how great this game is on its own without it just making me think of Quake. The new parry system fits into everything you use, from the shield blocking, the stun locking with your shield throw to distract nuisances on the battlefield, the deflecting of green projectiles, and doing what is essentially a glory kill, but it's just not being called a glory kill anymore. Eternal and 2016 were about being offensive, whereas Dark Age is about being defensive, being a tank on two legs, where you can't jump a mile high anymore to do a glory kill. Now you stand there with your shield up and you parry back any oncoming fireballs. There's just tons to keep up with in this game, but in the best way possible. Who you're going to throw your shield at to be able to stun lock them so they're not a distraction while you're in battle. What gun you're going to use against what enemy, when you need ammo, when you need health, when you can glory kill, your secondary firing types on each weapon, what weapon you're going to choose as a whole for your combat scenario, who you're going to kill first because you have bullets coming all around you, when you're going to parry an individual, if you got to look behind you to make sure there's no green projectiles coming at you that you can also parry, because you got to think all these people are firing around you at 360 angles. You got to keep all of this into consideration when you're in battle. That stuff is glorious and is the majority of the game. They even moved the parry system into the mech sections and the dragonflight zones, which unfortunately this is the worst part about the story mode. This is my biggest complaint about the game. The Doom guy being on the ground in his defensive mode against demons, and when you're in some of the best boss battles across the Doom series, I'm not joking, these are some of the best boss battles around this entire franchise. Something just clicks here. You know, there's a lot to think about, but when you're in a mech suit or when you're shooting with the dragon, it just kind of looks like this. It really feels like an autopilot mode. They strip away every mechanic I was just talking about and only use the parrying when something's directly in front of you. And the input to parry is a singular button. So when you take away all the thinking, all those other mechanics I was talking about, and you just have me click on a singular button to dodge, then shoot back at one singular enemy, what does that sound like? Because you're right, it's a QuickTime event. The mech suits and the dragon are aesthetically very Doom, but they just aren't nearly as fun as being on the ground. They feel very cinematic, they take away a lot of control from you, and they feel like QuickTime events. And they're very boring because of it. That's my biggest complaint about the game. It's not a lot of it, it's probably about 20% of the entire game, and everything else is near perfect to me. It's just for a game that boasts its variety by having 3 completely different types of gameplay, from shooting on the ground to being in a Pacific Rim Titan to being on a dragon. Those latter 2 aren't variety. They're just dumbed down versions of the shooting on the ground, made simpler and made less entertaining. Like I said about the shooting on the ground, the parrying system, the thinking about everything that you're doing, there's a lot that's grabbing your attention, and overall, everything else is pretty stellar. I recommend Doom the Dark Ages, but in my opinion, it is probably my least favorite of the recent 3 Doom games. Might be a little bit better than 2016, but I really don't think so. This isn't that big of a deal considering that Eternal is one of my favorite FPS games, and 2016 I still consider to be pretty fantastic. Dark Ages being my least favorite, it's still a great game. It grabs your attention during all of its shooting sections just as much as 2016 and Eternal ever did. The best difference with Doom the Dark Ages compared to the last 2 games is mostly the scale. The battles are huge with demons all around you, and it's never in a small area, so it's just a battlefield with you running and gunning and parrying, dodging, ripping, and tearing. That's my mini review of Doom the Dark Ages. It's like 8/10 of it is fantastic, and then just the dragon and the mech stuff, I'm kind of just whatever about it. It's not terrible, it's just kind of boring. Do I think that id Software should make another Doom game anytime soon, though? No, I do not. Go make a Quake reboot, please. Because Dark Ages, it isn't Quake whatsoever. But it's the closest we've gotten to Quake 1 since 1996. What do you all think, though? Do you get Quake 1 vibes from Doom the Dark Ages? Do you like Dark Ages? Do you agree with my critique on the dragon and the mech sections? Because that is the biggest portion of the game I don't like. The rest of it, I love. Comment down below, subscribe, like the video, but most importantly, keep on being you. I'm just kidding. Just ring the subscriber bell for me, please. Doom the Dark Ages is easily going to go down as one of the best shooters of 2025. But I think a Quake reboot can do the same thing if it was given the chance. You already know what we do on this channel. We're going to be appreciating every single little piece of art out there. And I will always appreciate you.